Mammy is always on top, am I right, boys? What's going on, everybody? It is Cody here for my review of Night 2 of the WWE Draft. I didn't make it for Night 1 just because I was seriously losing my voice after doing the live show on Monday and then doing the podcast all by myself on Wednesday and then being at work and stuff and yelling, and then I had an NFL draft party and I was yelling all across my house, so I barely had any voice left, and my voice is still struggling, but I wanted to do a review of the draft, so here I am. The show started off tonight with Triple H kicking off just like he did on Monday, explaining the rules. He didn't really add anything other than that he said Brock Lesnar is a free agent. So that means he can hop between Raw and Smackdown. I think that was pretty predictable. I know in my predictions on the podcast this week, I said Lesnar was going to go to Raw just because I couldn't see him on SmackDown. But the way this draft played out, there's not really many people I could see him feuding with on Raw. So I think it's kind of smart to have him do this free agent thing. Now, the first pick of the night was Rhea Ripley, the SmackDown Women's Champion. She's going to Raw. Feels like this is going to be a cheap way to give her and Bianca another title reign. Like, every time they do this belt swap, it's always, hey, this counts as the person winning the belt, you know. It's like how it was basically another way to add another reign to Charlotte, you know. I think she was a 11-time champion at the time, so it made her a 12-time champion, you know. Same with this. It's going to make both of these women 3-time champions whenever they do the belt swap, because that kind of looks like the direction we're heading. And it's going to start as a whole new reign for both of them, so it doesn't look like Bianca is going to break Becky Lynch's record, which that sucks for her. Second pick overall in the first round was Austin Theory, the United States champion. That was pretty predictable after Friday when Gunther got drafted to Monday Night Raw. He will be dearly missed on SmackDown because besides the Bloodline stuff, Gunther has been the best thing about SmackDown. Third pick, Seth frickin' Rollins, the future World Heavyweight Champion. And then fourth pick, Charlotte Flair staying on SmackDown. And with some later picks that were made, Charlotte's going to have a lot of people to work with. Between Bianca, Charlotte, and who I'm going to name later, SmackDown's women's division is about to get hot. Paul Heyman is then introduced by Triple H, and Heyman basically comes out and teases what if Roman Reigns wanted to become World Heavyweight Champion and how the belt would look good around him and stuff like that. Basically him teasing the fans, which was actually pretty funny because it pissed people off, basically. Like, as soon as he mentioned Roman even thinking about going after the World Heavyweight Championship, you should have just heard the boos, man. After saying all that, though, it leads to Seth Rollins coming out. And I keep opening the wrong app. There we go, I'm back to my notes. And Seth Rollins comes out, and whole time he's making his way to the ring, the crowd is singing loud with his theme song, and after he gets in the ring and the music shuts off, they just keep singing and singing, and Seth had this really funny face that he's looking at Paul Heyman when the crowd's singing, and Heyman just looks annoyed. But Seth Rollins comes out and talks about how he's going to be world champion, and he doesn't have to worry about Roman Reigns beating him for the belt because Roman can't beat him. This causes Roman Reigns to call Paul Heyman and basically warns Seth Rollins not to poke the bear. I think Heyman's exact words were, "You're pissing off the tribal chief." But this doesn't stop Seth Rollins from continuing to troll Roman Reigns. So this causes Solo Sikoa to come out, and a match is made for later in the show. After a commercial break, Damage Control versus Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez, the WWE Women's Tag Team Champions. This match was really sloppy and really boring. Damage Control didn't even really get an entrance. But they did get the win after a really bad Oblivion attempt, and then Bayley steals the pin, basically. Like, it was just a really sloppy match. They were not on the same page, and it looks like we're going to be getting this match in the future since Damage Control won. I imagine this means they're going to be in line for a future title shot. So I am not looking forward to the rematch, if I'm being honest. But congrats on Damage Control winning the match. And this is also one of the rare times that a champion has been pinned under the Triple H regime. The only other time is I think Seth Rollins might have gotten pinned when he was the U.S. champion. But yeah, this doesn't really happen under Triple H. But if it leads to a title match, it makes more sense, and I could see Triple H doing something like that. We know Vince would do it, but I don't know. I feel like this was his way to try to get the belts back on Damage Control, it feels like. Round 2, your guest pickers are Booker T and Queen Sharmell. Sami and Zayn and Kevin Owens are drafted by Monday Night Raw. They haven't specified what they're going to do with the WWE Undisputed Tag Team Championships yet, on if they're going to split the belts or if the champions are going to float. It looks like they're going to float for now. I imagine it's going to be like the Women's Tag Team Championships. And that's alright for now, but I would like to see the belts split up eventually. Second pick of the second round, the Usos stay on Smackdown, which was kind of surprising. Just the stuff they've been teasing the last couple weeks. I really thought the Usos were gonna go to Raw and separate from Roman Reigns. I felt like it was basically gonna be like, hey, Roman basically told Raw to draft you guys because he was sick of you, you know. But no, that's not what happened. So that was a pleasant shock of SmackDown taking the Usos. So the Bloodline stays whole. Third pick of the second round, the Judgment Day. Finn Balor, Damian Priest, and Dominic Mysterio. So all 4 members stay on the same brand. And it's kind of, I said, they all feel like an afterthought with what's going on with Rhea Ripley right now. I mean, she's the only one in the damn group that's holding a belt, you know. I mean, Damian has a lot going on. He's feuding with one of the biggest stars on the planet, but they still feel like an afterthought compared to Rhea Ripley. And the final pick of the second round, the LWO. SmackDown got 5 people for 1 pick. That feels like robbery, but they get Santos Escobar, Cruz del Toro, Joaquin Wilde, Rey Mysterio, and Zelina Vega. So all that talent for 1 pick. After that, Braun Strowman and Ricochet come out for a match against Alpha Academy. This was a very, very, very short match. There was a really fun exchange in here with Braun and Otis, but this match was basically a squash. Another loss for Chad Gable, but at least he didn't get pinned this time. But, I mean, yeah, that wasn't really anything to get into. Like, if you are looking for stuff like, oh, hey, should I watch Raw? This is the stuff I would tell you to skip. Round 3, your guest pickers are Shawn Michaels and Adam Pearce. But before they can even announce the picks, Brock Lesnar interrupts them and comes out to the ring. Adam Pearce tries to get Brock to leave and threatens him with a bunch of security guards, and Lesnar doesn't budge. He tells him it's going to take a lot more men than that to get Brock to leave. But Brock does leave whenever Cody Rhodes comes out and attacks him. And he quickly gets out of the ring, and then all the security guards that Adam Pearce brought out to take care of Brock are holding Cody back. So that means Shawn Michaels had to do the third round of the draft all by himself. And with the first pick of the third round, Monday Night Raw selected Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez, the WWE Women's Tag Team Champions. And then the second pick of the third round, SmackDown selected Asuka. And this is the thing I'm super excited about. You get Asuka You get Bayley, you get Bianca, and you get Charlotte all in the same brand. I mean, SmackDown's women's division sounds really freaking stacked. Yeah, I am looking forward to what... I mean, the booking for the whole women's division the last... has it been 9 months since Triple H has took over, has been really crappy. So hopefully we'll start seeing improvement on that. But yeah, I am excited just because, yeah, all four of those women, they're extremely talented, and them being on the same brand is something to look forward to. Then the third pick of the third round was the New Day going back over to Raw. I feel like this fits better for them. They've just been kind of not lost on SmackDown. I mean, they've had a string of bad luck with injuries and stuff, so hopefully Monday Night Raw feels like a fresh start for them. I don't think they're going to be on the show immediately because I think Kofi Kingston is hurt right now, so maybe in a few weeks they can make a surprise appearance against, like after a tag match and challenge KO and Sammy, because that would be a really good match. And then the last pick of the third round was the Brawling Brutes. Butch, Ridge Holland, and Sheamus all staying on SmackDown. And I feel like that group just, it's the heart and soul of SmackDown. They always come out there and have amazing matches. Now they were having amazing matches against Imperium, and that's going to suck now that they're going to be on separate shows. We're not going to get to see those 6-man tag matches anymore. But you know who is on SmackDown? The LWO. And I think LWO versus Brawling Brutes, that'd be a really good match. And then I want to see more Brawling Brutes versus Bloodline, hopefully. Because in 2015, Sheamus and Roman Reigns, they had a lot of great matches. And Sheamus is a babyface right now. I feel like he could be a viable challenger for Roman Reigns. Maybe not a pay-per-view, but like a little TV feud. Because Roman's got a lot of fresh challengers now. You got Bobby Lashley over on SmackDown. You got AJ Styles, which I'm super happy. I really, really want to see Roman and AJ again. So, especially this time with the dynamics being changed, I'm super pumped for them to lock horns in the ring. Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn are backstage with Riddle, and they seem annoyed by his presence, but they still accompany him for his match against Jimmy Uso. Match starts off with KO and Sammy at ringside, and they end up pulling the old Eddie Guerrero spot where you act like you got hit in the head by a steel chair and then toss the chair to the guy who you're faking hit you, you know. And this time it actually worked, and it caused Jey Uso to get ejected from ringside. This led into a commercial break. Come back. Matt Riddle and Jimmy Uso are going at it. Matt Riddle took a lot of kicks from Jimmy, but powers out of him each time Jimmy went for a pin. Jimmy tries to remove the turnbuckle, but gets stopped by Kevin Owens. Earlier in the match, Jimmy had kicked Kevin Owens in the face and took him out, and we hadn't seen KO for a bit until Jimmy tried to pull this move. This cleared an opening for Matt Riddle, who hits a jumping knee and then a floating bro for the win. It wasn't a bad match, it was just not a matchup I really cared to see, you know. Video package plays afterwards, building up Io Sky for her match this Saturday against Bianca Belair for the Raw Women's Championship. I mean, that match feels way more predictable now that both of these women are on SmackDown. So, I mean, I'm going to do a predictions video tomorrow, but that match is seriously, like, what's the fucking point of even watching it? Back from commercial after that, and we have Solo Sikoa and Paul Heyman backstage, and Jey Uso appears, and he seems very irritated that his younger brother wasn't at ringside for his bigger brother's match. And the issue doesn't really get resolved between them. Paul Heyman basically says, hey, we'll leave, you know. We can see that you're upset. So this was basically Paul giving Jay the cold shoulder, if you ask me. Excuse me. Round 4, your guest pickers are Eric Bischoff and RVD. And, man, I want to say one thing about Eric Bischoff. Man, the dude is... either on AEW or WWE, and he seems to be the only person that can float between both, you know? Like, he's usually on the big episodes of Raw, like the Raw reunion or the anniversary shows, you know? So, Eric Bischoff, and then he's on AEW doing the guest segments, like he did that debate with Orange Cassidy and Chris Jericho. That's the most memorable one, and he's done other stuff, but yeah, he's the only dude I really see that's hopping back and forth between WWE and AEW. It's just interesting to me. I was thinking about that earlier when he got revealed as a guest picker. I'm like, damn, dude's getting a paycheck from both sides. And then RVD, it's nice to see him. He's still wrestling, I think, in Impact. I don't watch Impact at all, so I'm assuming that's what he's doing. He's got to be close to 50 now, and he still looks good. One of my favorite videos ever on the internet is him going, Rob, Van, and then you have Ron Simmons go, damn! I mean, that clip is freaking funny. RVD is 52. So yeah, he's up there, and he still looks good. His hair, it's getting gray, but it's not horrible looking, you know? Like, yeah, RVD still looks very good for his age. First pick overall of the 4th round was Trish Stratus. It was surprising to me the other day when I was reading the draft pool and I saw she was included, but I would like to think that means she's going to be sticking around for a while, but I guess we'll see. Second pick, Karrion Kross staying on SmackDown. I mean, I don't think he was going to do that much better on Raw, so that's the thing. Like, the dude's just dead in the water right now, and yeah, I mean, he's going to have this match on Friday with Nakamura, and I mean, what both of these guys need is a barn burner. You know, they need to go out there and really lay it in and have a great match, because Nakamura's got more momentum than Karrion Kross, but they both need, you know, a shock to the heart, you know. Ronda Rousey and Shayna Baszler going to Monday Night Raw. I feel like Ronda will be a better fit over there than she was on SmackDown. And Shayna Baszler's, I mean, her role right now is Ronda Rousey's sidekick. So I feel like they'll both be alright. They can both be challengers for Rhea Ripley. So I feel like that's a good pickup for Monday Night Raw. And then the final pick of the 4th round, L.A. Knight, yeah, staying on SmackDown. And I feel like he's a prime candidate to end up being U.S. champion. Not directly taking it off Austin Theory, because they're both kind of not the same character, but they're alike, you know. They're both douchebags, basically. So I don't feel like promos would really work between them, and matches definitely wouldn't work, because it's, I mean, people would cheer LA Knight, but like I said, both of their characters basically are that they're douchebags. So whoever takes the belt off Austin Theory, LA Knight's going to take the belt off them, whoever that ends up being. Miz TV with Shinsuke Nakamura. I love that they're using Nakamura's theme from the start, you know, where the violins are quiet, you know, and then they build up, and you have that you know, little dun, 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 with the lights and all that, instead of how it's been the last couple years where it cuts in the middle and it's not as cool. They were doing the same thing with Finn Balor, and I don't know why they did that, because it's not really, you can't really get into the song, you know, whenever they're cutting in the middle of it. It's like, yeah, you know, it's like that moment whenever you're in your car and it's like, oh, I like this song, but it's almost over. You know, it's kind of hard to feel it. That's why it's always awesome whenever you get in your car and you get right at the beginning of the song. That's an amazing feeling, you know. So that's kind of how I feel about WWE and these themes. Like, I don't like it when they cut in the middle. One thing I really want to see, a World Heavyweight Championship match between Seth Rollins and Shinsuke Nakamura. I believe they've wrestled before. I think they had a match at Survivor Series, if I'm not mistaken. But I really want to see them in a big main event match. Here we go. Nakamura versus Seth Rollins. Has it ever happened? Yep, Survivor Series. And I remember that match being pretty good, actually. And then they had a match at Fastlane. I do not remember that. But who the hell ever watches Fastlane? That's hopefully a pay-per-view concept that's dead. By the way, this whole thing was on Miz TV, by the way. I don't know if I ever mentioned that. But Miz says Triple H was talking about him when Triple H said that the World Heavyweight Champion was going to be a workhorse. And Miz talks about all of his accolades and stuff, basically. And then he tries to form an alliance with Nakamura. Shinsuke tells him that he has tiny balls in Japanese. This ends with a Kinshasa. It was a pointless segment. It was just to get Shinsuke on the show. And I don't know if they thought people on Raw weren't going to be familiar with him. But, I mean, people that watch Raw watch pay-per-views. And most of them probably watch Smackdown. So I feel like a lot of these guys know who Shinsuke Nakamura is. He's been in WWE for 7 years now. And he has one of the most recognizable themes in wrestling history, you know. So this segment just felt pointless. Omos squash match. I didn't watch it. He squashed some jobber that I'm assuming is from Dallas. So good for him. He's got a match this Saturday against Seth Rollins. Hopefully Seth can get something good out of him. The hood that Omos was wearing, though, that covered his eyes and all that, kind of like a little boxing hood, it looked freaking cool on him. I mean, Omos looks like a bad motherfucker, and he seems like a really awesome dude outside of the ring, you know, but I don't know, man. They need to find a way to showcase more of his personality, and I feel like people would care about him more, because the thing is, his stuff just gets no heat at all, and we'll see how this Saturday is against Seth. Sorry, I had a cough. We'll see how this Saturday is against Seth, and if they have a barn burner, I feel like that would really help Omos with some momentum, but we'll see. Round number 5 of the draft. The guest pickers are Molly Holly and Road Dogg. And with those picks, they announce that Ricochet and Braun Strowman are going over to Monday Night Raw. I feel like both of them, because Raw didn't really get that much like main event talent to me. I mean, I guess I could relook at the rosters and change my mind, but the way this draft feels, it feels like they loaded SmackDown up. So I feel like both of these guys, you can have them as a tag team and then you can plug them into the mid-card and main event scene. Shotzi stays on SmackDown. I mean, Shotzi sucks, no offense. But yeah, Shotzi sucks. So it's kind of hard to care. But, and then, sorry, I'm looking, because more draft picks were made on Raw Talk, so I'm about to read those off at the end of this review. Bronson Reed goes to Raw with the 3rd pick of the 5th round, and then Pretty Deadly from NXT was called up with the 4th pick. So, Pretty Deadly, they're a welcomed addition to the tag team division. We'll see how they fare on SmackDown, especially, like, they're not going to be, like, the top team with the Usos being there, but if they could get to, like, the 3rd or 4th tier, I think they'd be doing all right. It just depends how they're going to end up doing this tag team belt situation. But after those picks, the Judgment Day comes out and cuts a promo before their match against LWO, basically promoting that Rhea Ripley is great and, you know, her being the first overall pick tonight. And she had a great line saying, you know, mommy's always on top, and that's why that's in the thumbnail. And the look Dominic had after she said that was really freaking funny. Damian cuts a promo in Spanish, calling out Bad Bunny. I saw a translation from Denise Salcedo, but I didn't read it, so if y'all are curious about what Damian said, go look at her Twitter page. Dominic then tries to talk, but he is booed out the building. I mean, the crowd was loud, and the only thing I think that was louder than these boos were them singing Seth Rollins music. But every time he tried to talk, every time he lifted the microphone up to his mouth, they booed. It was very reminiscent of the night after WrestleMania 33 when Roman Reigns beat The Undertaker. And then, he came out and said, "This is my yard now," but it took him 10 minutes to say it because he kept getting booed. And, I mean, they were really running short on time, but Dominic just kept getting booed. And he tried yelling over the crowd, and that didn't really work. Eventually, he calls out Rey Mysterio and the LWO. Zelina Vega, Rey Mysterio, and Santos Escobar all come out. Rey basically says he's looking forward to Judgment Day getting their ass kicked by Bad Bunny and who's Rhea face Zelina. This leads to a match: Rey, Santos Escobar, and Zelina Vega versus Damian Priest, Dominic Mysterio, and Rhea Ripley. Very strange that the other two members of the LWO weren't out there. You feel like they would be out there supporting their teammates, but I guess that's not the case here. But this match started off with some good exchanges between Rhea and Zelina. Eventually, Santos Escobar and Damian Priest wind up in the match after the two females tag out. These two exchanged some really stiff shots. Santos and Damian Priest were laying it. And, man, I mean, the sounds they were making, they were beating the crap out of each other. I mean, you can't fake skin-on-skin contact, and then you have that little thump. I mean, they were hitting each other. Maybe they don't like each other. Who knows? Dominic tricks Rey when he goes for the 619, but Santos takes him out with a tope suicida. This leads to Rhea taking out Santos with a dropkick, and then Zelina cleans her up with a Meteora. Really crazy exchange at ringside. Back in the ring, Damian Priest, he's tangling up with Rey Mysterio. Rey tries to go for a 619, and instead of that, he gets a South of Heaven for his trouble. Damian Priest pins Rey Mysterio for the win. Rey's been doing a lot of losing lately, but he's also on the backside of his career. It's some of it just feels like, they inducted him into the Hall of Fame because now people would say they have a win over a Hall of Famer. That's how I've been feeling with Rey Mysterio lately. But Damian had to pick up a win because if he doesn't, it kind of looks like Bad Bunny beats a nobody on Saturday. So they had to give Damian some momentum coming into this match with Bad Bunny. Cody Rhodes is interviewed backstage by Kathy Kelly. He says basically he has to beat Brock on Saturday to help finish his story. And I feel like that match is going to end up main eventing the show. I mean, that was the one line I really don't want to hear from Cody, was finish his story, because that's all we heard in the match leading up to Roman Reigns, and then he says it again, and I'm like, dude, shut up. I mean, this was probably one of the weaker promos he's had in the last year. Round 6 of this draft, and the final round of the night, until Raw Talk, basically, we had JBL and Teddy Long as the guest pickers. And with those picks, it was announced that Alpha Academy is staying on Raw. I really like Alpha Academy, and I feel like they're fitting really well into that tag team division. It's just Chad Gable loses a lot, and they don't really, they haven't been tag champs in over a year, and they haven't even sniffed the titles. So I'd like to see Alpha Academy involved in championships more and more. Rick Boogs drafted Smackdown. I feel like he'll be a better fit in the mid-card over there. And then from NXT, Katana Chance and Kaden Carter. Now this is very interesting because they're supposed to wrestle Alba Fire and Isla Dawn for the NXT Women's Tag Team Championship. But if you didn't watch SmackDown Friday, Alba Fire and Isla Dawn, they got called up. So now this match on tomorrow's NXT is between two main roster teams. So here's what I think might be going on with these women's tag team belts. I think it doesn't really matter who wins tomorrow, but I think they're eventually going to face the WWE Women's Tag Team Champions if it's either Liv and Raquel or if it ends up being Damage Control. I feel like we're heading towards a unification match because the NXT Women's Tag Team Championships are really useless. I don't know why they ever introduced them because you had the Women's Tag Team Champions floating between all three brands. So I feel like we're heading towards a unification. We may not be, but that's just my feeling. Either that or Shawn Michaels made the match on Friday thinking he was going to get to keep these two, and now he finds out they're going to Raw. So keep an eye out for a unification match here in the near future. Maybe in Saudi Arabia. And then the final pick, Mr. Relevant of this draft, Cameron Grimes going to SmackDown. SmackDown, like I said, it feels like they got a loaded main event scene now, and now it feels like they're going to have a good mid-card. I mean, to me, SmackDown's the show to watch. Main event time. We made it here in 32 minutes, so feels like record time for us, but we got more to talk about. I mean, this main event, dude, it didn't even start until 9:50, and the show ended at 10, so you couldn't even really get into the match because then it went to commercial not long after it started, so you really only got to see like 4 or 5 minutes of these guys in action, really. So like I said, when it kicked off late and then went to commercial, I just kind of stopped paying attention because I'm like, man, I'm not going to really get much of a match out of this. The main highlight really was Seth calling Solo Roman's bitch, which pissed Solo off and caused them to start beating down on Seth, but Seth eventually got the upper hand again after driving Solo into the ring post. The Usos come out to interfere and cause a DQ. Paul Heyman was on his phone at ringside, so I'm assuming he either called Roman or he called the Usos, and that's what happened. And then after the Usos come out and start attacking Seth Rollins, Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, and Matt Riddle make their way out from the back to the ring, but then the show cuts off and you don't see anything after that. You just see them run to the ring and it cut off suddenly. I mean, they just did not time the show out very well. I feel like they should have... I mean, you couldn't really cut the draft, but you could have cut the promo before the LWO Judgment Day match, or you could have cut the... You really could have cut the Miz TV with Shinsuke Nakamura because that segment was really stupid. But yeah, like, they just didn't really format this show well tonight because, I mean, yeah, you couldn't really cut the draft picks and all that, but yeah, not a very well laid out show. Now, last week I deleted my notes as I went along. This week I'm going to put them in the description just so you guys kind of see how I'm taking these notes throughout the show and, you know, how I detail stuff. Because I just look at it as like a reminder, basically, during each live stream. But speaking of this live stream, we had more picks made while we were on the air. And I am going to announce those picks to you guys. So, the undrafted free agents are Baron Corbin, Shelton Benjamin, and Cedric Alexander, Elias, and Zion Quinn. I'm assuming he's from NXT. Monday Night Raw, they got Johnny Gargano, Dana Brooke, and Nikki Cross, which you knew they were going to get Johnny Gargano because they got Candice the other day on Saturday. SmackDown selected Tamina, which I'm really shocked she is still wrestling. Let's see, what other picks were there? Drafted to Raw, Angel Garza, Humberto Carrillo, Akira Tozawa, Piper Niven, Xia Li, Tegan Knox, Riddick Moss, and Emma. So you got 4 picks for the women's division right there on Raw, and they kind of need it because you got Rhea and Becky, and then it doesn't really feel like anyone else. I know the rosters are slipping my mind right now, but... And then Indu Share, Jinder Mahal's group, they are drafted to Monday Night Raw. I don't feel like there's really going to be much with them, even though I do like Jinder Mahal. And then Odyssey Jones from NXT. Odyssey Jones has a lot of freaking talent. He hasn't really had a run in NXT due to injuries and stuff like that, but yeah, that's interesting that he got called up to the main roster. I don't really know what they could do with him, but I am intrigued that he's going to be on Raw. And then Grayson Waller is heading to Friday Night SmackDown. Now, I am not a Grayson Waller fan. I know people call him a knockoff Miz. I don't even think he's that. I think he's like the great value version of the Miz. Like, yeah, I'm just not a big fan of his. Like, I saw that, but I also haven't really watched, I guess, that much. Like, I saw that little feud he had with Shawn Michaels, and I really wasn't impressed by that. And he had a great match with Johnny Gargano, but yeah, dude, I'm just, yeah. But we're also going to recap the night one of the WWE draft just because I didn't get to talk about it the other day. The first overall pick was Roman Reigns, obviously. Then Cody Rhodes stayed on Raw. I was really surprised that they separated those two, but I mean, if you're thinking about it, like in a kayfabe stance, it made sense that Cody Rhodes would be the second pick if he's eligible because he's, the top guy. That's not Roman Reigns right now. Bianca Belair is going to SmackDown. I explained earlier that they're going to do a belt swap and give these women another reign, basically, without having to beat them. And then Becky Lynch staying on Raw, which Raw and SmackDown both feel like her show whenever she's on it. That's just how much of a star she is. But hopefully she'll be back within the next couple weeks. Then Street Profits going to SmackDown. I feel like they'll be top dogs over there, especially if they're going to end up feuding with the Usos again because they had amazing matches. Imperium going to Raw. Gunther, man. People that only watch Raw, you're about to be exposed to a whole new level of wrestling. Excuse me. Edge drafted to SmackDown. Hopefully, we've already seen him and Roman, so I'd really have to look at this SmackDown roster and figure out who I would want him to feud with. Matt Riddle staying on Raw. That's fine. Bobby Lashley going to SmackDown. I talked about how excited I was to see him and Roman. Drew McIntyre, I feel like he's got a very good shot at either being in the semifinals or the finals in the World Heavyweight Championship tournament. And then he's got a really great shot at feuding for that belt if they're trying to keep him and re-sign him to a new contract. I feel like they might put him in that upper middle card to try to make him happy, The OC, Michin, AJ Styles, Carl Anderson, and Luke Gallows all going to SmackDown. That is freaking incredible. I'm glad AJ's back on SmackDown. Only thing with AJ is I really just don't like it when Gallows and Anderson are with him. It feels like their presence kind of drags him down because AJ is such a level above them. Miz staying on Raw. Now that Grayson Waller's on SmackDown, it's a good thing Miz is on Raw because if they were both on the same show and they basically play the same character, it would have been annoying. Damage Control going on SmackDown. I feel like that's better for them. Bayley's done the best work of her career on SmackDown. Shinsuke Nakamura being drafted to Raw for the very first time in all these shakeups and drafts. We'll see how he is. I really want to see him and Seth Rollins, and I know him and Gunther had a match last year, but I want them to have another match. As I mentioned earlier, Isla Dawn and Alba Fire going to SmackDown. And then the NXT Women's Champion, Indy Hartwell, being drafted to Raw. And with Candice and Dexter Lumis and Johnny Gargano all being on Raw, I really hope we end up with a Way reunion because they were a great faction. And then these were the supplemental picks that were made on Saturday. The Viking Raiders, Dexter Lumis, Candice LeRae, Maximum Male Models, Zoe Stark, JD McDonough, Apollo Crews, Natalia, Chelsea Green, and Sonya Deville. And that was it. I mean, with the supplemental picks, the one I'm most interested in is JD McDonough, just because I don't really know how I feel like he's going to fare on the main roster. I'm glad that him and Finn Balor are on the same roster, because I feel like JD McDonough would fit in Judgment Day. And if you know their history, Finn Balor trained, he used to go by Jordan Devlin, but Finn Balor trained JD McDonough to wrestle, so I feel like we could end up seeing him in Judgment Day. And then Zoe Stark, she's a good hand to have in that women's division. I think her and Becky Lynch would have a really good match. Maximum Male Models, they're another tag team. Like I said, just I feel like there's enough tag teams to have 2 belts. It's just how they book the division. And then I just mentioned my plans with Dexter Lumis and Candice LeRae. And I feel like that's time to wrap up the show, unless anyone else had any questions. Backlash predictions will probably be out tomorrow. I'm either going to film them tonight or after I wake up in the morning, because I'm off tomorrow, thank God, because today was a long day. It's been a long week, so I'm glad to be off work for a few days. And then the Trainwreck podcast, it'll come out Thursday. I did my own solo show this week because Drew ate an edible before we filmed and was super fucking high, so it ended up just being me on the show this week. I screamed at him a lot, so hopefully he'll be at the show this week, and we'll probably end up talking about the WWE draft again and the NFL draft, talking about what both of our teams did. But that'll be the 10th episode, and we should be way past 10, but I mean, we missed a month when I was sick, So, yeah, what can you do? But thank you to anyone that listens to this live stream later on. Thank you to anyone that supports the Trainwreck podcast. I appreciate it. Probably won't be live after SmackDown on Friday because there doesn't really look like there's a lot going on that show. And then we'll see how Raw looks next Monday because the new rosters go into effect. Backlash. What time is Backlash on Saturday? Because I don't know what time zone Puerto Rico is on. So the show may be at a weird time. Plus I work on Saturday, so I don't think it's going to be in the middle of the day like Saudi Arabia. They're on Eastern time, so they're only an hour ahead, so it looks like it might be a normal start time then. But that's the show. Like I said, thank you anyone that made it this far, and I hope everyone has a great day and a great week.